Hello and welcome to the Best Boss Whisperer. I'm Danny Ceballos. In this episode, I'm joined by Doni Landefeld, leadership coach, organizational psychologist, and founder of Metamorphosis Coaching and Consulting. Now, this conversation is especially for you if you're a middle manager or you supervise or lead middle managers and senior managers who want to grow. They've already got the motivation, but they want to do it without burning out or going it alone. And of course, that's what you want too, right? So, as you listen, I want you to tune in for three important whispers. First, why reinvention and people skills become mission critical as leaders advance. Second, why no leader succeeds alone and how the right support changes everything. And third, why leading yourself first through emotional intelligence is a non negotiable. All right, ready? Let's get into it. So, my first question to you is what can you share with our listeners? What predictions, based on your own research, your own work, your own experience, how core middle managers can become all that they aspire to be?
Okay. So I would love if they can be like sponges and really learn and suck up as much as possible and then apply that knowledge because, as we all know, applied knowledge is power. And we've really learned over these past 2 years that reinvention is mission critical. We've heard so much about resilience, how it's an essential skill for managers and also a common theme for organizations. And we know a lot of middle managers get promoted because of either their technical knowledge or their subject matter experience. But then they often derail or stall because they don't have the other piece of that, the people skills. And so, effectively leading or managing others, they get stuck on things like the interpersonal relationships, presence, assertiveness, empathy, stress tolerance. I mean, the list can go on and on and on. And so it's always best for a middle manager or even an organization to be proactive and get coaching, training, mentoring, some sort of assistance early on before any challenges bubble up. It's much better to do that on the tail end than when we get those calls from HR or something to say, "Hey, can you fix a problem?" And I kind of sum it up with a quote, and this is a musical quote, of course, is no one can whistle a symphony,
What kind of support can I create right now so that the best defense is a good offense?
right? Well, and you summed it up perfectly. I couldn't agree more. It is definitely lonely at the top, and it can even be lonely when we're ascending to that top. But to just have that support, that strategic thinking partner, some sort of sounding board to have. We can't always understand our perception, how we're coming across objectively. It's really difficult to be objective of everything we do. So to have someone else, whether it's your immediate supervisor or a trusted advisor or maybe a coach, but I think of it also from the perspective of us in our businesses. And we don't go it alone either. We've got our accountants, we've got our attorneys, we've got virtual assistants, IT. Whenever something becomes difficult and our progress is stunted, it's because there's some sort of gap. We're missing out on something. So, this is when having someone else on the sidelines can help really bring out the expertise in the professional. Otherwise, we're just kind of spinning our wheels. And if I think back to my very first role when I was newly promoted and I was 24, and to be very honest, I was excited and I was also really nervous and scared about it. I've always had this penchant for leadership. It's why I love leadership development. It's always been a passionate area, but you can't have all the answers in the beginning. And so this is 30 years ago now, 25 years ago. But it was before coaching and a lot of the professional development tools that we have now are a thing. So I made sure I sought someone out and I had a really fantastic boss that I could really lean on, and he mentored me. And I knew from the get-go that I had to be vulnerable and have some humility. I had faculty members who were twice and three times my age, and here I am leading them. Where does that authority come in?
Right. Right. I'm wondering, what kind of advice did you get from your boss, or what kind of support did you get from your boss that you can share with our listeners?
Well, he really helped me I've always been a very organized person. And I was the type of individual that I would submit him my weekly plan on Friday for because I'm always planning ahead. But he would help me prioritize. We would go through that and anticipate. So, really help out with anticipating and problem solving before something festered and became an issue. Also, with some of the challenging interpersonal things, which that is one of the things that is always going to be until the end of time something that a middle manager has to deal with. We have so many relationships, and some of them get really messy. So he really helped coach me through how to respond, um, how to get to know them, and that's something that has been deep to my core ever since. I call it the platinum principle, to really get to know others and not treat them, not the old antiquated golden rule, but the elevated platinum rule. Treat others as they want to be treated.
So I'm wondering, can you help our listeners understand a little bit about what they can take from the science and practice of emotional intelligence that will help them not only support them in their current role, but perhaps prepare them to move up?
Sure, sure. Um,
Actually, Bonnie, can you do me a favor? Because I bet you some folks aren't even familiar with the term. Can you help us define just what emotional
yep.
intelligence is?
So I want to try to simplify it so it's very down to earth. So, really, it's all about understanding ourselves. So, it's that self awareness and then self regulation, managing ourselves. And then the other piece of it is understanding others and then managing and influencing and persuading others. So it's the individual understanding and management and then the social understanding and management. And what's really important about emotional intelligence is to first, and this is where I have this little platform I developed called Lead Yourself First. And it's all about mastery of personal leadership. The whole importance of that is we can only go so far with someone only after we've developed our own personal proficiencies. So that's how emotional intelligence ties into that. So you got to get it down. You got to do the internal work first before you can apply it with anyone else that you lead or manage. That's emotional intelligence. It's simple and yet it's complex.
It's that empathy. And speaking of empathy and self-empathy, emotional intelligence also goes into another model, which is called positive intelligence. And part of that positive intelligence is understanding the sabotaging voices in your head. But to relieve some of that and to move you into a more sage, wiser place is to develop the perspective of really deep self-empathy. So I'm wondering, is there a story or a challenge that you can share with us where you learned
Yeah.
something from?
Yeah. Okay. And empathy is really a good example. And what I love about empathy is it crosses over to both positive intelligence and emotional intelligence.
Yes. Right?
All right.
Exactly.
So I was stalling there a little bit to get the story. I got one. Um, and it's kind of an extreme one. One of the most difficult things, no, the most difficult thing I ever had to do 20 years ago is laying off people. And I was in this position. I was an academic dean and I inherited some challenges, one of which was an overinflated budget and cuts had to be made and they were painful. And we just had too many faculty, had to cut some of them. And Danny, I remember sitting in that office, tears. It was so painful. It is the worst thing I have ever experienced, other than when you lose a loved one. It's kind of on that same level. And the opportunity was the growth opportunity for empathy, to be able to connect with someone so deeply. And this is where empathy can be confused. It's sharing something with somebody. You're not It's not sympathy where you're feeling sorry. It's sharing with someone. And to go through that together, I realized that empathy was one of the most important skill sets that a manager has got to have. And I'll never forget it.
Yeah. That's a great lesson. And I really appreciate that you differentiated between empathy and sympathy, because I think a lot of mere mortals get that confused and think, oh, I have to feel sorry for Donnie in order for me to connect to her and her pain. And that's not what you're saying. You're saying to be in the same space so that I can relate to you. And as you're saying, it's a skill that not only is essential, but can be learned. I mean, that's the good thing, is that it can be learned, right? Right on. So, thank you, Donnie. That was great. Great insights around what it takes to be a best boss, using our emotional intelligence. And I'm wondering, as I ask all my guests, if you could share a few things with us. I would love to hear from you about what should listeners do right now, immediately, as soon as they finish this podcast, to take advantage of some of the insights that you shared with us.
I'm going to go back to being a sponge and learning as much as possible and to ask for help, to avoid going it alone, to seek out other professionals to help bring out the expert within. And there's a quote that I'll use. I can't remember where it came from, so my bad on that, but it's along the lines of, until you're willing to be wrong about many things that you'll never change. And what I would add on to that is, if you don't change, you're never going to grow. Resources. Oh my gosh. So my heroes are people like Martin Seligman, Brene Brown,
Mhm.
Shirzad
Yes.
Shameen.
Yes.
Let's see. A new one, James Clear,
Oh,
Timothy Clark. So I have some of my tried and true favorite books of all time. One is Flourish by Martin Seligman. I also love Carol Dweck's Mindset. If I'm going to give just one for middle managers now, I'm probably going to fall back on James Clear Atomic Habits.
oh, yes. Right.
It's got
Perfect.
great downloadable cheat sheets that you can use. And, habits are all about changing our behaviors. And a lot of behaviors are things that apply in the workplace. And I like the way he scaffolds. It's like, let's
Yes.
just
Yes.
do things incrementally, a little bit at a time. And it's sage wisdom. It's just amazing. Um, there was another question before, how do people get in touch with me? And that's the one I forgot.
Yeah. So if there's a favorite piece of research or a finding that you found interesting that you would share with folks.
Um, it's a very general piece of research, and that is that any of these skills can be learned. So to not be deterred and keep from improving, trying to get closer to that ideal version of yourself.
Yes.
So to
Yes.
not be stuck in a vacuum.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's the opposite. Leaders are made, not born. Right. So, yeah, that anybody who's listening to this can become the leader that they are intended to be. But to your point, not to do it alone and to seek out those resources that will support that. I think that's tremendous. So, Donnie, tell us how can folks best find you if they want to connect with you?
I love LinkedIn connections. It's how we can kind of get to know one another. So if you just simply search for Doni Landefeld, and I guarantee there are not any others out there, we can
Yes,
connect that way.
that's right. You certainly are not, for a variety, not only by name, but also because of your unique talent and wisdom and everything that you bring to the table. This has been a really great conversation. I know our listeners gained something from it about their own metamorphosis, their own middle management metamorphosis. And I just, again, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Danny. Anytime. Let's do it again.
Now, before we wrap up, let's revisit the three whispers from this conversation. So, first of all, we talked about why reinvention and people skills matter more as leadership responsibility grows. Secondly, we explored why no one leads well alone and the value of trusted support and feedback. And third, we named why emotional intelligence and leading yourself first are foundational to leading others. My thanks again to Doni Landefeld for sharing her insight and experience. I'm Danny Ceballos, founder of Unleash Consulting, and this has been the Best Boss Whisperer. Thanks for listening.